Have you ever thought about how Neville Longbottom's fate might be even sadder than Harry Potter's? What if the movies never truly showed the depth of his tragedy? In today's video, you will uncover the heartbreaking truth about his life. Neville Longbottom, clumsy, timid, and often the punchline of a joke. Throughout the Harry Potter series, he was mocked not only by the cruel Slytherins, but even by his fellow Gryffindors. To many viewers, he was just comic relief, a contrast that made the main characters seem smarter and braver. It wasn't until the final films that Neville was portrayed as a true hero. But even then, his story felt incomplete. In reality, his journey was far more painful, filled with tragedy that rivaled, even surpassed, Harry's own. His parents, Frank and Alice Longbottom, were brave Aurors who fought against Voldemort as part of the Order of the Phoenix. When the Dark Lord learned of a prophecy about a child who could destroy him, two families fit the description: the Potters and the Longbottoms. Voldemort chose to hunt Harry, but he sent his Death Eaters after Neville's parents. What followed was unspeakable. Frank and Alice were tortured for so long with the Cruciatus curse that they lost their minds. They weren't killed, but they were taken away from their son forever, locked in a hospital, unable to recognize him. Neville grew up an orphan with living parents, raised by his strict grandmother, who constantly compared him to the father he could never live up to. She doubted his abilities. Even his own family thought he might not be magical at all, resorting to terrifying tricks just to force his magic to appear. When he finally arrived at Hogwarts, things didn't get easier. Bullied mercilessly by Slytherins, ignored by Gryffindors, even underestimated by professors, Neville was always in the background. While Harry and his friends dove into adventure after adventure, Neville struggled to make friends or earn respect. But something changed. Slowly, he began to show the courage of a true Gryffindor. By the final battle, he wasn't just standing in the shadows, he was facing Death Eaters head-on, even striking the final blow by destroying Voldemort's last Horcrux, the snake Nagini. Yet despite everything, his future felt strangely underwhelming. While Harry, Ron, and Hermione took on prestigious roles in the wizarding world, Neville became a professor of herbology. He married Hannah Abbott, not Luna Lovegood, despite hints of a connection between them in the books and movies. For someone who endured relentless bullying, a tragic childhood, and a lifetime of self-doubt, Neville proved himself a true hero. But was he ever given the recognition he truly deserved? Have you ever wondered what Neville Longbottom truly felt after the war ended? What if the victory he helped achieve didn't bring him the happiness he deserved? In today's video, you will see why Neville's story didn't end with triumph, but with quiet sorrow. The moment he struck Nagini down, everything changed. The battlefield was chaos, but for a brief second, there was silence. He stood there, sword in hand, realizing he had done something no one expected. The boy who once struggled to even cast a simple spell had just delivered the final blow against Voldemort's last Horcrux. But as the celebrations began and the wizarding world rejoiced, Neville felt something else. His friends had a future to look forward to. Harry, finally free from his destiny, had a life to build. Hermione had her intelligence, her ambitions. Ron had his family and a sense of belonging. Neville had spent years thinking he wasn't good enough, years of being overlooked, underestimated, and ignored. Even after his moment of heroism, there was still an emptiness inside him. He visited St. Mungo's in the days after the battle, as he always did. His parents sitting in the same chairs, staring at the same walls. They didn't react when he entered. They never did. He placed a sweet wrapper in his mother's hand, watching as she clutched it like something precious. A part of him hoped, every single time that she would suddenly look up and remember. She never did. It was a different kind of loss than what Harry experienced. Harry had memories of his parents. Neville had only stories, glimpses, and a void where a childhood should have been. He didn't seek attention after the war. He didn't write books about his experiences. He didn't chase glory. He quietly took a job at Hogwarts, teaching herbology, working in the greenhouses where things made sense. Plants didn't judge. They didn't ask him to prove himself. They simply grew under the right conditions, something he had never truly experienced himself. He married Hannah Abbott, another student who had been overshadowed during their school years. They were both survivors, both people who had suffered and endured, but their love wasn't the kind of epic romance found in stories. It was quiet, steady. But was it fulfilling? Maybe, maybe not. There had been something unspoken between him and Luna Lovegood once, a connection made of shared loneliness, of being the outsiders looking in. But Luna was never meant to stay in one place. She had a world to explore, creatures to find, a destiny that didn't include standing still. Sometimes he wondered what might have been. He wondered if he had been born just a little stronger, a little braver from the start, if maybe things would have been different. If his grandmother would have looked at him with pride instead of disappointment, if his parents would have been there to see him become something more than a scared boy with shaking hands. The students at Hogwarts saw him as the kind professor with a slightly awkward smile, the one who still seemed surprised when people listened to him. They didn't see the boy who once feared his own shadow. They didn't know how much it still hurt to walk through the halls and remember the boy he used to be. Years passed, but some wounds never healed. He still had nightmares of that final battle, flashes of fire, screams, the weight of the sword in his hands. He woke up some nights feeling like he was still that boy who never quite fit in, no matter how much he had proven otherwise. He never talked about it. He never told anyone that sometimes, even now, he still felt like he wasn't enough. That the past never truly let him go. He had saved the world alongside his friends, but in the end, he was still Neville Longbottom, the boy who tried his best, even when it never seemed to be enough.